Hi all, so in this video we are going to make a very simple POC called contact manager, and in that we are going to add data to our database. But generally what we do is to write any data to our database. Suppose this is our data, here we have captured the data and we have to write to data store. We use a process model and we use a write to data store entity to write the data to the process model. These can be also used as smart services from the interface as well. So these are the smart services for that. To write the data to the database, we can use Appian write to data store entity, and to delete the data we can use Appian delete from data store entity. So it deletes the data there. Okay, and it adds the data and to save into parameter, and all these actions can be done directly from the interface. Okay, so let's get started for that and we will make our POC. Okay, fine. So let's go on new and create an interface. First of all, we will create a very simple interface. Let's name it as contact manager. Done. In that we will create two values called name and email address. Two fields will be there and that will get saved into a database. So let's get started with a very simple form layout. Okay, and in this form we will keep two text para values. Let us duplicate this only. Okay, done. And instead of the form, let's name it something as contact manager. Okay, that part is done, and then let's name it as name, and here we will write it email. Okay, fine, and this section let's leave it. Fine. So name and email address we have written. Okay, now we have to write the data to the database. For that we will need a data type as well. So we will create a data type and we'll map it to data store. So let's map it contact manager. Okay, data type. So in our data type we'll keep only two values, name and email address. Okay, and after that we'll publish to the database. Okay, fine. First three fields we need for now. So it is going to be a quite basic one: ID, name and email. These three fields we need. So ID is number integer, and let's make it primary key. Okay, it will auto generate. Done. Primary key is configured. Name will be text and email address will be text, and by default 255 characters it is there. We'll leave it as it is. So our data type is done. Now we have to go back to the data store and map this data type. So let's go to the data store and map this data type there as well. So let's click on add entity, and here we have to select our database. So let's go and select. Okay, Y will be here. Y is contact manager data type. Done. And here we will name something as Y is contact manager. Okay, save it. Let's no tables found. It will automatically create table for that. Okay, and we can go to our database and confirm the same. Okay, so database is getting something like contact should be made here. So you can see contact manager data type has been created, and this is the structure for that: ID, name and email. Now let's go back to our interface and we'll add the label inputs here, contact manager, and the data type is nothing but ys underscore, let's say, contact manager data type. This is the data type and we have created it. Now let's map the values to it as well. Value rule input contact manager dot name. Okay, this is done. Let's copy the same and it will get saved into name, and here the value is what, this one, but instead of name it is email. Done. and here as well, instead of name it is email ID. Now it is done. Name and email ID has been added. So till here everything was quite basic. Nothing much was there. Okay, and now when I click, suppose I written any name ABC, email address is abc@email.com. We can write anything. Okay, so when we click on submit, instead of submit, let's write something as add contact. Okay, so let's add something as add contact. So when we click on add contact, the data should get added. So anyway, the data is already captured here. When we click on add contact, the data should get added to the data store. Okay, so now it is the time to use this smart service, but where to actually use? So if you read the documentation properly, it is the documentation says that this smart service can be used into a save into parameter. Okay, save into parameter. So where are the save into parameters? So when I click on add contact, then only it should get saved. So here only we'll create a save into parameter. Okay, so save into parameter, let's make it abang save, or no need of abang save actually. Now here only it will be used abang write to data store entity. So here only you can see that the documentation is given here as well. Creates or update data in data store entity. This function will execute inside a save into or web API. So I have created save into for that. What are the different parameters it needs? It needs a data store entity. It needs value to store, success and errors. Okay, so data store entity, the best way to refer our data store entity is to make a constant. Okay, so let's make a constant for that. So here is our constant, and here we will name it contact manager. Okay, and it will be data store entity. Let's create the data store entity and ys data store. Okay, and contact manager create. So our constant is created. Manager spelling is a bit mistake, but no issues, fine. So let's go back to our data store entity. To refer the constant, we'll use const bang and this. Done. So contact manager data store entity is added. Now the value to store, when we click on add to contact, what value it should actually store? So it should store all these values. If you see that what is it actually, it is a rule input. It is inside the rule inputs and it should store all these values. So for that we'll create a local variable to store that rule input. Let's create a bang local variables. Okay, done. And local bang, let's name it add contact. Okay, add contact, and add contact will be of what type? It will be, we will use type bang operator for that, and ys contact manager data type. So this is the data type. When I click on submit, this is the data type to be added. So it has three fields: ID, name and email. ID is null, which is a primary key in our database, so no need to add it. But what name should get added when I click? So rule input contact manager dot, it is name. Okay, and what is the email ID? So rule input contact manager dot email. So these are the two things should get added. Okay, when I click on this, so let's add it, value to store. When I click on add, this values should get stored. Done. Now there is what on success. On success tells what? Let's see. A list of saves, it is created with a bang save, and the stored values are available in the function variable fvbang store value. It is saying the values are stored in this variable. Okay, so we'll use two more local variables here. Local bang success. One will be of su local bang success, and another will be local bang error. Why I created the error? Because two parameters were there here actually, on success, on error. So when it is success, it will get saved, a bank save. And why I used a bank save? Because here only it is saying it is created with a bank save. I have created with a bank save. And where I want to store the success, so local bank success and fv bank store values. And how I got the stored values? Because it was written in here only, because these values were stored, success parameters stored. Okay, fine. Now on error, it is also created with a bank save. It is clearly written there. So I have created local variable to store the error message as well. And but here it is not specified somewhere error is there or not. So if it is not there, let's not waste much time, and we'll use just there was some error. There was some error. Okay, if it is not executed properly, this value will get. And that's all we need now. Okay, so currently if we see our database, refresh it, nothing is here, right? Let's click on add contact and we'll see the contact is getting added or not. Okay, it is there, the values have been saved, error is null, on success it is written. Let's refresh our database, and we can see that the value has came into our database as well. So this is how we can use a bank write to the data store entity to write data to the database directly from the interface as well entity. Now in this part, before going on to the delete data, first of all we need to get the data to delete. But the data is not available in our interface. So first of all we will try to get all the data in our interface, so that we should be able to delete the data as well. So for that, what I am going to do is I am going to create a read only grid, so that we can get the data from our database. So this is our read only grid. We'll drag and drop this read only grid here. Okay, and in this grid we are going to get the data. So to get the data, first of all we will create an expression rule to get all the data from our database. Okay, so here we will write get all contacts. Okay, let's create it. Once our expression rule is done, so for that we will use a query entity to get the data. So for that what we will do is a bank query entity. Okay, and what is our entity? So first parameter is entity. Entity is for the referring the entity. We have already created a constant, so let's use that constant only. Cons bang, this constant is done. Now what is the query? So our query is created with the help of a bank query. Okay, that is done. Now here in the query we can see lots of parameters are there: selection, aggregation, logical, filter, paging info. A lot of data are there. We don't need all this information. Our data is very simple, just one value we want to get. So paging is very important actually. The most important parameter is paging info. So we will create the paging info. Okay, and it is created with the help of a bank paging info. And what is the start index? Start index will be 1, and batch size will keep it -1. If you want to get all the data from the database, use -1. Okay, and now let's test the rule. So you can see here all the data is coming, and start in the batch size we don't need that value, so we will just use dot data. It will only give us the relevant data. So now this is the relevant data that we need. Okay, let's save the changes, and in the grid we'll refer that only. So let's go back to our grid. We can configure the data from in the grid here, or we can go to expression mode. Let's go into the expression mode, and in the read only grid it is used in this section layout. Here let's make the label as contact list. Okay, so this is our contact list and data. So data is coming from a rule, and what is the name of that rule? Rule bank get all contacts. So ys rule bank get all contact, that's it. So data is coming from here. Now the data has been added. Now we will add our columns. So here in the database, how many columns are there? 3 columns are there, right? So let's try to make some columns here as well. A bank grid column. Okay, so a bank grid column, and what is the label? So first label will be our nothing but ID, and what is the value? So what is the value of ID? So we need to get the values of IDs as well. So fv bank row dot ID, so it will get the ID for that. So you can see here ID is written. The second column that we are going to make is a bank grid, a bank grid column, and here we will label, we will can give something as name. Okay, and what is the value? So just write fv bank row. And why we are writing fv bank row? So we can see the documentation for that, how we are fetching the value. So here only it is written such as fv bank status we can write. So fv bank row, if you write all the data you will get here. And what we need in that, especially we need the name. So dot name is done. Our second value is ready as well. And let's create one more column. A bank grid column is label. Label will be email, and value will be fv bank row dot email. fv bank row dot email. So the email is done. We need one more column to actually, from where we can take the action to delete the data. Okay, it is ready as well. And now we will create our fourth field, that is a bank grid column. And what is the label? Let's write the label something as action, where we will actually make a link to delete the data. Okay, so action is there, and what is the value for that? So the value will be let's delete the extra. So the value, it is saying some line 54, fine, and the value will be a bank rich text display field. That's our value. In that, what we will do is we will write a bank rich text icon. And what is the icon we want to use? The icon that we will use, let's use something as trash. It is available there, and this icon will show here in our table. See, icon has came. And since something we want to delete, so let's make the color of it as what is the available. Negative is available, right? So we will use negative. It will make it something like this. Okay, so color is used. So icon we have used, color we have used. Now we have to use link. Now we have to use something as link as well. So in the link, and here only if we see what are the different links available. So authorization, document download, dynamic link is there, process, task, a bank start process, all these links are there. We will use a bank dynamic link. Okay, and for the link part, what we will do is here label. So label is just nothing but we want to delete some data. So delete contact we can write for that. That is not of that value, and will directly jump into save into. Okay, in save into, what we want to do is we want the data to be saved. So first of all, if I clicked on that link, the whole row should get selected as well. Okay, so for that, what we will do, a bank save. The data should get saved somewhere, and the value we will delete it afterwards. So first of all, let's try. It will save somewhere, right? If we click on that link, the whole row. So let's create a local variable for that. We will create something as local bank contact to delete. Okay, contact to delete. And now what we will do is local bank contact to delete. It will save that, and what value we will save. So if we want to save, we will save the ID here. Okay, FV bank, we can get the ID from row.id. So we have already like used the FV bank row.id here only to get the ID, and the same ID we will use here as well. So contact a bank save, we have done it. Now finally it is the time to use our a bank delete from data store entities in our save into parameter. A bank delete a bank delete from the data store entities, and we'll see what are the different parameters available for that. First parameter is data to delete. Data to delete, what is the data we want to delete? So here it is saying a list of entity data identifiers. It says that a list of entity data identifier that identify the items to delete. So it is saying a list. Let's make it a list, and it says entity identifiers. So for that, what we actually mean is, so to better understand it, let's open our process model and we'll search delete from data store entity. If we open this smart service here, and if we go to the properties of the data here, so if you see here in the data to delete, this is actually the entity data identifiers written here, and the same thing it is saying in the documentation as well. Okay, it is saying in the a list of entity. In the list, what values are actually there? Two values we can see here. Entity is there and identifiers are there, and that's what we want in our interface as well. So first of all, we will write entity. Okay, entity, ENTITY. So what is the entity? So our entity is nothing but the constant, and what is the name of that constant? This is already selected. Fine, great. Now second parameter, what we have seen, identifiers. Okay, so in the identifiers, what we will do is we'll write this identifiers. In that, we have already selected how every row will get identified with the help of contact to delete. Okay, so when we are selecting this icon, this row is ID is getting saved, and it will identify that ID and it will delete from this entity. So this is how it will work completely. Okay, and we have done the basic configurations. Let's test this as well once. So contact to delete, and let's click on that. Okay, it happened, contact to delete 1. Okay, let's refresh our database, and you can see the data has been deleted. Now it doesn't look much good here. Let's save our changes first, and we'll try to give it a good design as well. Okay, so now our designing part is getting started. We have done all the configurations we need, and first of all, this is the dynamic link that we have configured. Okay, and this is the A-Bank rich text display field. Fine, this is the link, right? So we will keep the link style as stand alone, right? So we'll keep the link style this one, and in that icon we'll keep it something like trash. Oh, this looks a bit more better. Fine. And now moving on to our this part, that is nothing but the contacts part, this one. So read only grid is why it is written, no need for this to get shown here. Fine, that is fine. Currently data is not available here at all. And now let's add some data, def, and here we will write def@email.com. this data will get added into our contacts. Done, and the data will get saved to the database as well. At least we will have some data. Okay, let's save the changes and let's refresh the interface. So you can see here every time we have to keep on refreshing the interface as well to get the data shown. We will try to figure out that as well. Okay, that part is done, and now let's move on to our name part. So in the name, what we also want to display is, in the value, instead of directly showing the name, we will show something much better. So for that we'll use here Appian Appian rich text display field. Okay, in that we'll use value as Appian rich text. Okay, let's rich text, Appian rich text icon, and in the icon part what we will do is we'll keep the icon something as user alt. I have already seen the name, that's why I know the icon name. You can search in the documentation for a better icon as well. Okay, so icon is done, and let's make the size a bit more as well. So we'll keep the size as medium plus. Okay, let's see, medium plus is showing. Just after that what we want is, when this ends, right, so when this ends, this is the rich text icon ends, let's give a bit of a space. Okay, and let's give a comma, and now we will use Appian rich text item. Okay, and here we will use the text function to get the name done, fvbang row dot name, and here the name will get shown. Done. I guess something here we are missing. Keyword and non-keyword arguments should not be mixed. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to make it a list actually, and all this, okay, data will get added into this list only. Okay, cut from here, I'll use it and save it. Fine, now it looks much better, and if you can see here, the name and this is a bit attached to them. Okay, so after that name, so name we have done it, and let's make the name a bit more, style will be strong. Done. Okay, fine, style is strong, and let's increase the size as well. So size will be something like a medium. Okay, our size is medium, and now again after that what we want to add one more thing here is, we'll show the email ID here as well. I'm thinking that might look a bit more good. Okay, so character 10, and let's make this a bit more spacious, and here we'll use Appian rich text item, and the text parameter will be Appian. Here we will refer the email ID as well. Nothing much we have done, we have just referred the email ID that we have referred somewhere else, and this color will be changed as well. So here as well, like this you can refer it. Okay, so let's make it a bit of more space. Yeah, fine. So here, okay, that part is done. Email ID is already added here, let's not delete it, we can add it like this. Now one more thing is the contact list is showing, so let's make some changes in that as well. So here only in this section what we will do is, we will add a link to show the contact, or to when we want to show the contact, it will show in this section only. This is the first section. Okay, so in this link field we have added to show or to hide the contacts actually. Okay, so let's go back to our link field. This is the second, this is the link field for that, and we'll use that link field actually to show or to hide the data. So Appian dynamic Abang dynamic link will use, and the label will be nothing but show contact. Okay, so the link will be, this link is fine, show contact. Okay, so when we click on show contact, the data should get, so label, now the label has been added. After the label, what we want to do is okay, so save into, so we'll use now the save into parameter. So for the save into, what, when I click on this contact list, some value should get saved there, so that we should not be able to, we can be able to see the contact, or we can be able to hide the contact. So for that, let's create local bank show delete. Okay, so delete, and initially we will keep it false. Okay, and if it is false, the contact list should not get displayed. Okay, and the same can be configured in this section only. This is the section for the contact list. Okay, contents is done, and the whole section should not show. So when local bank show okay, show delete. Okay, we have show delete. Instead of delete, we can write show contact. Okay, done. So instead of that, we have written show contact. Okay, so contact, fine. So it will only, so if you see here, the contact list is not at all appearing to us, right? If I click on this link, okay, now the contact should get shown, right? So we will use a bank save, what is the target, local bank show contact. Okay, and what we want to save, we want to save true. If we saved it true, the value will get true, and we will be able to see our contact list. Now once the contact list is shown, we want to hide it as well. Okay, so in label, we will not use two links for that, we will use the same label. So hide contact, right? So label also, let's make the label as if condition, if local bank show contact, if it is initially shown there, then what we want to do is, if it is initially shown, then we will use show contact, and if it is not, then we can use something as hide contact, right? Done. So let's try this link as well, and we'll see whether this works or not. Okay, if I want to hide contact, so it is not exactly a bit okay, so let's make it hide contact, and here we will use show contact. Now it's fine. Now if I click on show contact, it will show us, and now we can hide the contact. But when I click on hide contact, it is not hiding, right? So we will also use a save into parameter for that, local bank show contact, and here we will click on false, right? So now let's try to hide the contact. Now so the same value cannot be added here, so what we will do is we will use a if condition for that. If, so if condition tells what, if local bank show delete or show contact is here, if it is false, right? If it is false, then it should save what? If it is false, then it should save the true value, right? Let's cut it and let's paste it here. And if it is this one, then it should show false. Initially, like we have used both at the same time, so it was not working, but now it should work. So if it is contact, it will show us. Now it will hide the contact if we click on hide. That's all we needed for that. Let's save all the changes of ours. Okay, and let's try to add some new contact, something as Peter, and here we will write peter@email.com, and we click on add contact. This will get added, but it is not showing in our interface, right? So for that purpose as well, we need to configure something called refresh variable, so that we should be able to refresh the values as well. Okay, now Peter is coming, but Peter is not shown here. So for that, what we will do is we will add the refresh parameter somewhere. Let's add the refresh local bank contact grid. So let's make something as local bank contact grid, and here we will use a bank refresh variable. In the refresh variable, what we will do is, what is the value every time it should fetch, and how the grid is fetching the data with the help of this rule. So every time we want to call this rule here, so rule bank this, the okay, rule is like this, fine. And every time the value is getting added, it will show the data. Refresh always is true. That's all we need, I guess. So let's try to test this. Okay, let's hide our contact if we want to hide it, and if we want to write something as Smith and smith@email.com, let's add the contact. Let's show the Smith contact will get added. Is it added in our database? Let's see. Smith is added. Let's save the changes. Now we will refer this contact grid here. Okay, where is our grid? Instead of this data, what we will do is we'll refer this one, a bank contact grid. Instead of this data, we will use this data. Now the Smith is added. Okay, so if we want to write something as John, and here we have selected John, let's see, add the contact, and you can see here John as well is now added. And if we want to delete something, you can see John is deleted, Def is deleted, this is deleted, and if we want to add the contact of here, we can add them as well again and again. So this is how the it was a simple attempt to make a contact manager. Okay, and we have used two very important smart services as well, writeToDataStoreEntity and deleteFromDataStoreEntity. Okay, and we can make a site for that as well. So let's create a site for that. So in order to create a site, we will name something as contact manager manager site. Okay, and it will say the contact lists. Okay, and to display contacts. Okay, so if we created a site for that, it will ask us, let's skip the default setting, it will ask us like how we want to refer the site. Okay, so there are few ways to refer the sites as well. Okay, so if we want to add any pages into our site, we have to okay, we can refer it as interface, but interface should not have any rule inputs. Why I'm saying that? Because if I try to refer that interface, it will give us the error. Okay, if I try to refer the interface, it will get selected, but it will give the error like with rule input cannot be saved. Then how we can save it? So we can't save it as a record list, report, and action. Action is the only way to save it. To save it as an action, let's create a process with a start form, nothing much. Okay, so contact list, let's make a process model like this one, and in the process model we will map it as a start form directly, nothing much to do there. Okay, so and we won't configure anything at all. So this is the form for that. Okay, so let's create the process start form, ys underscore contact manager, values are there, map it. Okay, now save and publish it. So this is the smart easiest way to create a start process for that. And now we will go back to our start form and we'll select the action from here, and it is saying that select a process model with a sales start form. We do have a process model with the sales start form, ys contact list. Okay, so if I want to get something as contact, let's make something as contact list. this is fine, and we'll give the name as contact manager. That's it we want to do, and let's save the changes. Fine. And now let's go on to our site. We can go to our site from here as well, or you can click on this link as well. So let's click the link and let's go to our site, and from the site we will see how we can be able to see all the data. So this is the contact manager. If we want to write any name at all, suppose I want to just some random names are there, Julian, okay, and here also we'll write something as julian@email.com, and it will get added to the contacts, and the contact would have been added in our database. Let's click on show contact, okay, and you can see here Julian is added. So that's what. And if you want to go to the database as well, so here as well the Julian is added in the database as well. So this is how we have created. And if you want to delete some data, Peter, let's say Peter is deleted from the database as well, we can see the Peter would be deleted. So that was all about this contact manager. Okay, we can make different POCs related to this one as well. So that's all in this video. Thank you.